Hello everyone, it's Josh here from That Film Theory, back again with a little something about a film from my favourite director of all time, Edgar Wright. Wright's latest flick, Baby Driver, was one of the most purely entertaining movies of 2017, and though it might seem like a surface-level affair, anyone who's seen an EW movie knows there's always much more to it than that. Case in point, Baby Driver has invited a devastatingly convincing fan theory brought to the table by Redditor S0nicorn from the terrific r/fantheories subreddit. The theory suggests that Baby's girlfriend Debora isn't simply the cute archetypal waitress love interest that we think she is. Instead, it's hypothesized that she's in fact working for Baby's crime lord boss Doc the entire time and is part of a plan to keep Baby gainfully employed rather than riding off into the sunset to Simon and Garfunkel tunes. By breaking down the movie's plot scene by scene, it becomes clear that something isn't quite right with Deb, and it feels like Wright is subtly trying to tell the audience that there's much more to her. Naturally, Wright hasn't chimed in on the theory himself, but like the very best fan theories, it slots effortlessly into the film's internal story and character logic. And so, let's begin a deep dive into Deb's eyebrow-raising actions throughout the movie. First up, the most immediate suggestion that something's just a little bit off with Debora is her various questionable actions and general topsy-turvy characterization. In isolation, these moments might not ring any alarm bells, but together, they add up to support the theory that not only is Deb hiding something from Baby, but she's actively working against him, at least in the beginning. The first time we see Deb, for instance, she walks past the same coffee shop Baby is in and is heading in the very same direction that Doc's warehouse is situated. Harmless on its own, yes, but in conjunction with all this supporting evidence, not so much. When Deb gets properly introduced to Baby, she expresses very little surprise at him being called, well, Baby, and quickly steers the conversation into topics close to his heart, namely music, driving, and his mother. It's all pretty coincidental. It's also implied that Debora has just started working at the diner, as indicated by her uniform bearing the name tag Jonathan, perhaps suggesting that she was hastily planted there by Doc. Also, she always seems to be working there, which is certainly a bit fishy. I mean, I know the economic climate isn't great and all, but there's something certainly off about her just always being there. Even more incriminating, as the Reddit post covers, is a subtle but potentially crucial moment which occurs during their laundromat meet cute. Deb gets incredibly twitchy when someone enters the building, giving them a prolonged glance before switching positions with Baby so that she can see the door totally, and then suggesting that they even go some other place. That is classic criminal behavior right there. Later, Baby takes Deb to a fancy restaurant only for Doc to make an appearance and pay for the bill, a fact that Deb seems kind of unfazed by, almost like she's totally familiar with Doc and knows that he's going to blackmail Baby by pretending to threaten her life. This is further implied when Doc's crew enters the diner with Baby, and again, Deb keeps an unnaturally cool head in such a clearly alarming situation. At its core, Baby crossing paths with Deb when he literally only has one last job couldn't be any more convenient, and their fast flourishing bond allows Doc to use her safety as a leverage to force Baby into working for him yet again. This is further cemented because, of course, Deb avoids freaking out once again as the plan unravels and things become increasingly out of control during the climax, even attacking Buddy when necessary, suggesting that this ain't her first rodeo. Again, these individual moments might seem circumstantial on their own, but they add up to a heap of convenient and suspicious happenings that collectively imply Deb's complicity in the events of the movie. And that's not to ignore the fact that she's blatantly presented to be as deliberately appealing to Baby as possible, and that's certainly no accident. And while that might simply suggest Wright's interest in heightened pulpy romance, it might also hint at a very deliberate attempt on Deb's part to play up to Baby's precise desires. For starters, she sings a song with Baby's name in before even meeting him, and when she heads to his table to take his order, she almost immediately begins flirting with him while expressing an interest in both cars and music much like himself, and even initiating a conversation about his mother. It all feels a little too good to be true, honestly, and not to forget the fact that she claims there's nothing keeping her in the city, representing the potential for Baby to escape with her to a better life. And yes, you can argue that Deb's easy comfort with baby is simply part of her easygoing personality, but isn't it all possible also that it's all part of one long con? She soon enough insists that baby can tell her anything, getting her claws into him emotionally until he confesses that she's the most important thing in his life, a necessity for Deb's manipulation of baby to pay off and Doc's blackmail to be successful. All in all, Deb creates an almost comical ideal fantasy to appeal to baby, creating a bond that he'll do anything to protect her, even continuing working for Doc. As such, when Doc tells Baby she's cute, let's keep it that way, Baby feels like he has no choice but to comply. And if all this isn't enough, there are two scenes in the movie which literally depict Deb as a black and white old school fantasy dame waiting for Baby to come over and just give her a smooch. It's unclear whether or not Deb actually is into the things that she says she is, but ultimately it doesn't matter. She's telling Baby exactly what he wants to hear, and he's thoroughly lapping it up to the point where he puts his own life in peril. But, of course, the rabbit hole goes even more cerebral than this if we consider just how deviously Deb takes advantage of Baby's troubled past. Though Debora is presented as Baby's dream partner throughout the film, the con goes one level deeper when you consider the not-so-subtle Freudian aspect of Deb's manipulation. The film occasionally explores Baby's past, where, as a child, he was involved in a car accident that killed his parents and gave him an especially rough case of tinnitus/tinnitus, please don't kill me in the comments, which he drowns out with music. And it's surely no accident that Deb is framed in a similarly maternal light often throughout the film. The first time Baby sees her, in fact, she's singing his name in a fashion not unlike his late mother, and Deb even bears a fair resemblance to her too, that is, being blonde and pretty. Further still, it's stated that Baby's mother used to work at the very same diner, and given that Deb very quickly initiates a dialogue with Baby about his mother after they first meet, it can't help but feel intentionally manipulative. To seal the deal though, Deb of course has her own dead mother to mourn, allowing the two to forge an easy kinship, despite the possibility that Deb has fabricated this story to emotionally ensnare Baby. But to be clear, that doesn't mean Deb is entirely conniving and heartless, and it all raises the obvious question: why does Deb display clearly genuine affection for Baby, especially in the film's final act, if it's all part of a con? Well, the simplest answer here is the right one. Despite Baby initially just being a job, she ultimately ended up developing authentic feelings for him over the course of the movie. Even if you accept that Deb feigned a love of music and cars, it's possible that her mother really did die, and this allows them to develop a totally honest bond. And of course, that's not to ignore Baby's humble charm and the fact that he looks like, you know, Ansel Elgort, which may have helped break her emotional barriers down. By the third act, it's clear that Deb is fully invested in Baby's getaway plan, and that's hardly much of a dramatic stretch, given how many Bonnie and Clyde type movies begin with a reluctant woman eventually falling for a dangerous man. Of course, that still leaves one majorly divisive aspect of the film up in the air though, and that's Doc's rather sudden face turn at the 11th hour, but don't worry, we've got you covered. So, in the final 10 minutes of the movie, Baby begs Doc for help and, after initially refusing, ultimately decides to give him money and an escape route out of the country, while fending off some armed goons for him in the process. It looks cool, but it's a character turn that kind of feels pretty contrived, honestly, at least until you consider the possibility that Deb has been working for Doc and perhaps means something more to him, because Doc only decides to help Baby after seeing him with Deb, resulting in him catching a feeling. But this isn't merely Doc wanting to help two lovebirds, it's Doc wanting to do the right thing by two of his loyal young employees, or in the case of Deb, possibly his niece or some similar relation. Again, as the Reddit post hypothesizes, the evidence is there to suggest that Deb is probably Doc's niece. Given that Doc uses his nephew Sam to help him stake out a bank earlier in the film, there is precedent for him employing family to help with his misdeeds. Consequently, seeing Deb together with Baby gives him that moment of realization that he has to help them. Hell, Doc even says, "I was in love once," implying that he knows exactly what they're going through. And considering how comfortable Deb appears to be around violence and carnage, it's possible this isn't even the first assignment Doc has put her on. But Doc and Deb being pre-acquainted unrelated, whether in employment or in family, would explain why he makes that otherwise out of character swing towards benevolence. And finally, there is one other simple fact to consider in this entire theory, and that's that this is freaking Edgar Wright that we're talking about here. Out of all of this, the most convincing proof that Deb is working for Doc in my eyes is that Edgar Wright is one of the most meticulous genre filmmakers working today, and practically nothing in his movies is just a happy accident. Some will argue that the fairly contrived nature of Deb and Baby's loving is simply a byproduct of Wright trying to tell a Bonnie and Clyde-esque love story in less than 2 hours. But Wright's reliance on tropes is so pervasive that it can't help but feel intentional and entirely self-aware. Baby having just one more job before retiring and his boss not wanting to let him go so easily is a cliched setup we've seen hundreds of times before, to say nothing of the extreme ease with which Deb drops what she's doing, admittedly not all that much, and falls madly in love with Baby. Remember as well that this is a film where Wright keenly toys with a typical action thriller structure and formula. Griff disappears out of the movie after telling his team, "If you don't see me again, it's because I'm dead." And though the audience firmly expects him to reappear later, he never does. He's nothing more than an A-list herring, and it works terrifically. Wright's generally detailed-oriented approach is in fact evident everywhere, namely by the way of the director's signature foreshadowing. For example, a bank teller quotes Dolly Parton lyrics to Baby, saying, "There can't be a rainbow without a little rain," and as it turns out, when there is rain and the heist goes wrong, there is also a rainbow visibly over Baby at the end of the movie when he reunites with Debora. There are literally dozens of references like this sprinkled throughout Baby Driver, which suggests the writers put a crazy amount of effort into creating this world and these characters. As a result, is it easier to believe that he just got lazy with the genre tropes, or that he's hiding an epic plot twist in plain sight? You tell me. So that's the Debora Baby Driver plot twist theory. I encourage you to go over to the original Reddit post and check it out for yourself. There is some great discussion there, but I also want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think that this theory holds water, and do you want them to explore it in a potential Baby Driver 2, which I absolutely can't wait for? And while you're down there, could you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh. Thank you for watching That Film Theory, and I'll see you soon. Bye.